It is a dark night in the mountains and forest land of upstate New York. Humphrey Thomas, a 47-year-old 6-foot-something heavyset firefighter, is currently cutting trees and debris in order to stop the spread of a raging wildfire. He is working alongside Jeremy Ranson, a fellow firefighter and a close friend of Humphrey's. While it is basically pitch black out, the moon and the fire illuminate the night sky and the fear in both Humphrey and Jeremy's face. The fire becomes more and more wild as Humphrey hears an indistinct yell from afar. In the distance, he hears Jeremy jumping out of the way of a falling tree and hitting the ground hard, shouting in pain and his arm is broken. Humphrey looks in the direction of the falling tree as it has fallen on 2-story homes surrounded by blackened burnt trees. Running out of the home are a mother and 2 of her children around the ages of 3 and 5. Children are crying as their mother rushes to throw last-minute supplies in their SUV. He could have saved them in their home if he was just a little faster. As the mother puts her children into the car, the younger child looks in Humphrey's direction, points at him, and screams. Everything begins to move slowly as Humphrey turns around and realizes his fate is similar to Jeremy's. A tall tree begins to fall. Humphrey leaps out of the way and dislocates his shoulder, which snaps just like the tree does. Humphrey crumbles in pain as he looks in the direction of the crying children, as the SUV begins its journey down the flaming hillside, and firefighters rush to its aid. Flash forward to 5 years later, Humphrey is now a 52-year-old truck driver listening to some jazz tunes in the middle of the desert. He taps to the beat of the music on his steering wheel as he snacks on a granola bar. He throws the wrapper on the ground of the vehicle, which is covered in similar wrappers from snacks, fast food wrappers, empty soda cans, and a framed picture of a group of firefighters with the phrase "Station Number 2" at the bottom of the frame. On the middle of the highway, Humphrey passes an armadillo ripped to shreds and makes a tally on a notepad titled "Roadkill along I-40, which is filled with a numerous amount of tallies. Cars, minivans, and moving trucks zip by him as he drives slowly on the right side of the road. Humphrey drives more and more as he spots more roadkill ahead of him. He prepares his notepad, gets closer to the dead animal, but he doesn't tally. The roadkill isn't dead. As he gets closer, he sees that the living creatures are 2 abandoned puppies, Labradors, probably 8 weeks old to be exact. He rolls his eyes and keeps driving, not taking any interest in having 2 passengers in his semi-truck be animals. However, something different catches his eye. In the distance, an unknown figure, androgynous yet manly in stature, is walking in the straw and dead grass to an abandoned truck. There's no road where the truck is parked, and the truck sits in the desert area with its doors open ajar as this figure appears to be walking from the road to the vehicle. Maybe this person dropped the puppies off? Maybe this person needs help with their truck. But then the figure turns around and stares at Humphrey. They hold this intense eye contact for what seems like an hour. After an intense staring contest, the unknown figure pulls car keys out from their pocket and shakes them in their hand. Humphrey is assured that the car belongs to the figure and stops caring why the truck is there. He snaps out of it and looks in the right wing mirror, then the rear view mirror to get a better view of what's happening behind him. A minivan packed with luggage and a happy family stop to pick up the abandoned puppies. Trying to reassure his apathetical being, he scoffs, laughs, and continues driving on. After a while, Humphrey decides to stop at a gas station to refill his tank and maybe pick up snacks and a meal for his drive. He cleans out the interior of his truck, throwing away everything into the trash except the framed photo, and leaves it sitting on the ground. Outside the gas station convenience store, other truck drivers and travelers from far and wide are gathered along a wall outside the store. From afar, he can tell it is filled with advertisements for local businesses and a big wanted poster, but can't tell who appears on the post. However, he dismisses it and walks to a nearby McDonald's while looking on a cracked cell phone screen. Inside the McDonald's, Humphrey is continuing to look at his phone, browsing his schedule while standing in line. He scrolls through his phone and realizes he needs to reach his final destination on November 29th at 4 p.m. He looks to see the current time and date, November 28th at 6 p.m. He has less than a day to reach California. Next in line to order, Humphrey focuses intensely on the McDonald's menu, almost like he's having a staring contest with the coffee image on the menu. Moments later, Humphrey is sitting at a table loudly chomping down a Big Mac. He takes out a map from his pants pocket that is scribbled all over in messy handwriting with rest stop locations, gas stations, and McDonald's locations. He loudly sips his soda as his finger follows along the I-40 freeway line that goes from Texas to New Mexico. His finger stops at McDonald's in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico as he checks his watch, 6:12 p.m. Back in his semi-truck, Humphrey sets on the Texas highway towards New Mexico as the sun sets on the horizon. He belches loudly as he hums along to the jazz music playing through the radio and taps along to the beat on his steering wheel. He looks back and forth at the map and at his watch, which reads 6:32. He sighs, pulls over to the side of the highway, and turns off the ignition. He sets his alarm for 9 p.m. and lays down for a quick nap before his long drive to California. It is now 11:38 p.m. Humphrey is cruising through the night while listening to heavy rock music. The road around the vehicle glows and fades into the darkness. Time passes as Humphrey holds a hot pack to his left shoulder. He winces as he begins massaging it. The clock on the radio reads 12 a.m. At 1 a.m., Humphrey passes a sign on the side of the road reading, "Welcome to New Mexico." He sighs as he passes it and decides to have some water. He reaches to the floor of his vehicle while continuing to drive and accidentally jerks the wheel. His semi begins to steer off the road into the desert grass, and Humphrey grabs the wheel and swerves back onto the highway. The semi begins to lean over, and Humphrey white-knuckles the wheel, trying to stabilize the vehicle while holding it still. Then he punches the brakes. The semi begins to balance itself out. Humphrey rests his head on the steering wheel for a minute while trying to relax his breath. Humphrey looks up as he hears a car coming up behind him. A car races right past his semi, swerving through the lanes on the road, then jerks into a rest stop area where it crashes into a building there. A shadowed figure runs out from the passenger's side, while an unknown figure follows. Humphrey hesitates to keep driving and decides to go investigate. After parking in a designated parking spot for semi-trucks, he grabs his pocket knife, a small flashlight, and first aid kit just in case and heads over to the car. As he approaches the vehicle, he notices that there's something on the window but keeps walking over. As he gets right up close to the vehicle, he turns on his flashlight to see blood splattered everywhere. He backs away and gags when seeing it, then moves to the back seat where there is a bloody blanket. He opens the door and removes the blanket to find a dead body, a man with multiple stab wounds. He gasps, then he hears a cry for help. Humphrey looks up in horror. A flashlight shines in the distance as he sees the two figures running into the nothingness of the night. Someone is in danger. Humphrey could be next. In the middle of nowhere, the unknown figure wielding a knife is wrestling with the shadowed figure. Grunts and groans can be heard from all around as the two tussle in the silence of the night. The unknown figure gets a grip of the shadowed figure's shirt and punches them, knocking them to the ground. The unknown figure looms over the shadowed figure, holding the knife between their two hands above their head. The shadowed figure begins to accept their fate until Humphrey runs in and tackles the unknown figure to the ground, landing on his left shoulder. The unknown figure groans while Humphrey winces in pain, beginning to comfort his shoulder. He gets up to see if the unknown figure is okay, until he realizes he tackled a woman, the unknown figure all along. Worry and fear begins to show on Humphrey's face as he looks over at the shadow figure beginning to stand up. He cannot take any more chances. He strikes the figure with all his might. The figure falls as Humphrey realizes he just killed a man. He holds a bloody pocket knife in his hand and begins to sob. Meanwhile, the unknown figure stands up and walks over to the shadow figure, taking a ring off its ring finger and placing it onto her thumb, which already holds 4 other rings of the same band. Humphrey grabs her ankle, hoping to stop the woman, but she pulls out her knife and intimidatingly lunges at Humphrey, who lets go and cowers in fear. She laughs as she pulls the car keys out of her pocket and jingles them in his face with an evil smile. She turns and heads towards this rest stop area. Back in her car, she pulls out the heavy dead body out of her back seat and throws out a crumpled piece of paper. She turns on the wrecked car, puts it in reverse, and exits the rest stop area. Humphrey slowly runs over, but it's too late. He could have saved the man. He unravels the piece of paper. It is the wanted poster with the mugshot of the woman, the unknown figure.